morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk about energetics and metabolic rate. So previously we learned that almost all the energy our body uses come from the energy the food we eat, and macronutrients such as protein, carbohydrate, and fat are metabolized to ATP, which function as the energy currency in metabolism. We also learned that anaerobic energy means the energy can be derived from food without the simultaneous utilization of oxygen, while the aerobic energy means that it will be metabolized through oxidative metabolism. So everything we previously learned was about metabolism, and you know the importance of metabolism, right? And you also probably heard the term metabolic rate, right? And you also know that this is very important. So why metabolic rate is very important? So I would like to give you two examples, two extreme examples. First is an eagle. It's a predator. It has a very high metabolic rate, which is crucial for hunting and flying. Another extreme example is a sloth. It's a prey. It's very slow. Actually, sloth has the slowest metabolism in mammal kingdom. It is so slow and even stupid, but scientists wonder why it's still not extinct yet. Well, to give you a perspective, that predators like eagle hunt largely with their eyesight for fast-moving subjects, such as rodents and rabbits. However, for sloth, since it's so slow and without sudden movement, actually helps to conceal them. Well, this is just two completely different survival strategies, but for our human, higher metabolic rate is more linked to higher chance of survival, right? And also, since nowadays obesity is becoming more common and metabolic rate is linked to obesity, so having a better understanding of metabolic rate and metabolism will certainly help us to have a better understanding of health and well-being. So in this lesson, we will be talking about metabolism and metabolic rate, and also be learning the factors that influence the energy output, as well as the factors that affect our basal metabolic rate. We also have a basic understanding of the methods to measure the metabolic rate, and finally, we will have a glimpse of some of the newest top-tier researchers in metabolism. Okay, so metabolic rate is amount of energy expended over a specific period of time. As you know, that metabolism consists of thousands of chemical reactions in our body, and you expect that heat production is the final production of metabolism, right? Exactly. So heat actually is the end product of almost all the energy released in the body. So how do we measure the metabolic rate? So basically, we can measure the heat liberated from the body, right? This is called direct calorimetry. However, direct calorimetry is difficult to perform. So normally it is used for research purpose only. So there is another alternative, which is called indirect calorimetry, which uses the principle of the energy equivalent of oxygen, because you know that 95% of the oxygen reacts with the food we eat, right? Okay, so now let's look at factors that influence energy output. So as you know, in order to maintain a stable body weight, then the energy input should be same as energy output, right? Or in another word, if you want to lose weight, then your energy output should be higher than your energy input, right? So in terms of energy output, it will be used for, one, the performing essential metabolic function of the body. That is called the basal metabolic rate. So there are many ways to boost the basal metabolic rate, such as exercising, right? And two, as I just mentioned, performing various physical activities. This is a common sense. And three is maintaining body temperature. This is also very obvious. During the winter, you end up eating more, right? Because you just always feeling hungry, because you need more energy, because a lot of energy are used for thermogenesis. And four is digesting, absorbing, and processing food. So, in terms of basal metabolic rate, This is the minimum energy expenditure, okay? Minimum energy expenditure for the body to exist. So for an average person, the basal metabolic rate accounts for 50 to 70%. Okay, so if we average this 50 to 70, we say it's 60%. Okay, so this is 60%. So actually 60% are used for our basal metabolic rate, right? So within this 60%, around 50%, right here, 50% are from the sleeping metabolic rate. Okay, so actually when we sleep, we do still metabolize, right? And another 10% are from the arousal, So when we are awake, this is called arousal. Okay, so another around 8% are from the thermogenic effect of food. We'll be talking about later, okay? So just basically for digesting food. And about 7% are used for non-exercise activities, such as thinking, right? And the rest are called purposeful physical activity, okay? So we hear this 100%. So as you can see here, this I make a spiky shape because the purposeful physical activity can vary to some extent. So what you may find interesting point is that actually the purposeful physical activity doesn't account as much as you may presume, right? Actually, it's true. To give you an idea, my basal metabolic rate is about 2,200 calories, okay? If I run 10 kilometers, 10K run, I normally spend 800 calories, okay? So if you do a small calculation, actually this only accounts for around 35% of my basal metabolic rate, okay? That's not much. However, please bear in mind, a 10K run is not an easy task, it's not something you can do every day, even for a fit person, probably 3 times per week. That's pretty much, okay? So what does this can tell us is that despite actually there are many beneficial aspects of exercising, the bulk energy expenditure actually from the basal metabolic rate, right? So now let's look at factors that can affect basal metabolic rate. The first is the thyroid hormone. So the thyroid hormone can increase the rate of chemical reaction of many cells in our body, okay, so that can increase our basal metabolic rate. Okay, so the thyroid hormone is famous for what function? It's for the cold acclimation, okay? So the level of thyroid hormone will increase in colder weather, okay? So this also explains the difference of BMR among people living in different geographical zones. Another is the male sex hormone, okay? So the male sex hormone, which is the testosterone, they can increase the metabolic rate about 10 to 15%. Do you remember what does the testosterone do? It has the anabolic effect, okay? So the anabolic effect is to increase the skeletal muscle mass, okay? So, since male tend to have higher muscle mass than female, so male tend to have higher basal metabolic rate than female. Also, since the level of testosterone decreases along the age, so also the younger people tend to have higher basal metabolic rate than older people. And also because we just mentioned its anabolic effect, so for bodybuilders, since they have more muscle mass, so their metabolic rate is higher than average people. Another factors that can affect basal metabolic rate are, for instance, the growth hormone. So the growth hormone can increase the metabolic rate by stimulating cellular metabolism and increasing the skeletal muscle mass. So its function is very comparable to that of the thyroid hormone. And again, since it's the level of growth hormone decreases along the age, then you expect that older people have lower metabolic rate than the younger people, right? And also, now let's talk about sleep. So the metabolic rate can decrease 10 to 15% during sleeping. This is normally due to the decreased tone of skeletal muscle musculature, as well as decrease of the activity of central nervous system. So actually, it's also very obvious if you see a person who suffers from chronic insomnia, okay, chronic insomnia, then this guy normally becomes skinny because an unrestful sleep will not decrease the basal metabolic rate during the night, all right? And finally is the malnutrition, okay? So prolonged malnutrition can decrease metabolic rate 20 to 30%, okay? So in clinics, it is called cachexia, okay? Cachexia. So normally, it is with those patients who suffer from the end stage of cancer, heart failure, AIDS, etc. Okay, so normally in this kind of stage, there is a great muscle loss and anorexia. Okay, anorexia means the rejection of food. Okay, in Chinese it's called 厌食. Actually, it's easier than English, right? Means hating eating, right? Okay, so we just mentioned that purposeful physical activity can increase our metabolic rate, right? And so you may also expect that strenuous exercise can dramatically increase metabolic rate because an easy-paced jogging and an all-out sprint are completely different, right? So as you can see here in this table, as the difficulty of the exercise increases, then their perspective, calorie per hour, also increases. And also you can feel by yourself, the more difficult the exercise is, then the faster your heart beats, right? So in sports scientists, normally they target a different heart rate zone to achieve specific training benefits. So we also mentioned the thermogenic effect of food, which accounts for around 8%, right? So actually it's true. So after having a large meal with carbohydrates or fat, okay, this normally will increase our metabolic rate about 4%. However, if we have a large meal with a lot of protein, this will further increase 30% of our energy expenditure, and normally this will last 3 to 12 hours. Actually, this also really very obvious. So for instance, if you have a barbecue buffet for lunch, first you will feel what? You feel very hot, right, during your lunch. And also, you may end up feeling hungry even when the day ends, right? This is because of it. So now I would like to ask you a question. Why do people become more obese today, regardless of taking more energy and moving less? Okay, so we will remove these two variables. Do you know the answer? You can share your opinion on 学习通. So I would like to give you a perspective, is that nowadays we end up eating more junk food, okay? So even the junk food have the same calorie as let's say real food. However, since these ultra-processed foods are so easy to digest, so actually you spend less energy to digest food, right? Actually, you also feel it by yourself. When you eat a real food, you feel hot, right? And also, you just feel, even after a small portion, you no longer feel hungry. However, compared to a junk food, you don't feel hot, and you can just keep on eating the whole day, right? So this gives us a hint that actually calorie probably is not just calorie, right? It seems like calorie, they have kind of different metabolic effects, right? Yes, actually it is backed by science. So according to several researchers, they address that calories from different macronutrient sources, okay, or consumed at different time of the day have metabolic effect beyond their value as fuel. Okay, today we talk about fuel. So, contrary to traditional thinking, a calorie is just a calorie. Now we say, no, a calorie is not just a calorie. So if you are interested in this article, you can scan the code for original article. And also, there is another effect, it's called non-shivering thermogenesis. So there is shivering thermogenesis, right? The friction of the muscle to generate heat. So the non-shivering thermogenesis is stimulated by sympathetic nervous system, normally in the presence of the cold. Okay, so in a cold stimulation, actually we people have a specific type of fat which is called brown fat, normally around the interscapular area, okay, around the shoulder. And this kind of fats, they can liberate large amounts of heat in the presence of cold stimulation, okay, because they have large number of mitochondria and also many small globules of fat for beta oxidation. So, so there are also an interesting point that in neonates, they actually have a considerable amount of brown fat. So, counterintuitively, babies actually are less afraid of cold than adults. So according to some nursing experts, babies should put less clothes than adults. This is because as we age, the brown fat decreases, even disappear. And also, the non-shivering thermogenesis generated by the brown fat may also serve as a buffer against obesity. Actually, this is backed by science as well. So sorry, this is a little bit awful, but we still can read. So actually, it addresses that individuals with brown fat have lower prevalence of cardiometabolic diseases, okay? And the presence of brown fat was independently correlated with lower odds of type 2 diabetes, dyslipidemia, coronary artery disease, etc. Okay? So actually, brown fat is probably a very handy tool to target obesity, right? So you may wonder, is there any way to boost our brown fat? And you may guess it. Actually, it's true by cold stimulation, right? For instance, winter swim. So there is a study showing that for those winter swimmers, they have more brown fat than average person. Okay, and you know that normally those winter swimmers, they are way fitter than average people. Also, if you are interested, you can scan the code for the original article. All the articles I present are the top tier researches, okay? And finally, to end, I would like to share you a small document because actually in northeast of China, winter swimming is also a famous sport. Okay, so for instance, in Harbin, where during the winter the temperature can be low as -30, -40, but you will see many grandpas, grandmas, they just dump into the river. Okay, during the winter, they are not afraid of the cold, and you see they are super fit. Okay, so I will call them, this Chinese spirit. So please appreciate this. Say, I winter swim, I'm healthy, I'm happy. Isn't it amazing? Okay, so actually we are in the southwest of China, right? This is northeast, so completely different directions. So in China is super big. There are a lot of places you can explore, okay? So, to summarize, so heat is the end product of almost all the energy released in the body. And metabolic rate can be measured by direct or indirect calorimetry. And basal metabolic rate can account for 50 to 70% of the daily energy expenditure. And also, there are a number of factors that can affect BMR, such as the hormones, sleeping, food, and muscle activities. And diet quality and timing can impact metabolism and health. And finally, the brown fat, which can be activated by co-stimulation, improves metabolism and offers potential as a therapy against obesity. So thank you for your attention. 时间